of warm honey water, and oh man, like I'm like holding it in my hand, it's like super warm. Yum 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 yum.
예, 뭐 이제 승률 1위, 예, 그리고 승승승승승, 정말 승승장구를 하고 있는 그런 정명훈 선수죠. 같은 팀이랑 붙었을 때도 팀대전에서도 강한 모습을 보여주는.
All right, Fantasy is coming out. He might make some Valkyries as well. Actually, now this is an awkward spot for Fantasy, because now Fantasy has to play Zerg. He's like, God damn it, Sock. You just like revealed my strategy. Now what the hell am I supposed to do? If I can't make Valkyrie, what do I do?
값진 승리를 팀의 전반적 승리로 마무리 지어줄 역할을 하러 나왔습니다.
네. 자, 정명훈 선수가 2012년 84%의 승리를 보여주고 있는데 대적할 만한 선수도 만만치 않습니다. KT의 임정현인데 지금 임정현
He is actually playing a Zerg. It's gonna be Fantasy versus Crazy-Hydra. Crazy-Hydra. I love this guy. I used to think he was silly because he like made this funny nickname and wasn't actually that good. But then last season he actually was really good. He was one of the I'm trying to think of his record. Wasn't he like 8-2 or 10-2 or something ridiculous? He had like a sick record in the regular season, and he was really good in the playoffs. Like Action and Hoja were bad in the regular season, but really good in the playoffs. But Crazy-Hydra was good like the entire season. Apparently, he was 11-2. Man, that guy is pretty damn good. Alright, so thank you Blindor for being my rage. I'm raging vicariously through Blindor, I guess, to all these people calling me Orb. Yeah. Can you do that? Actually, wait, does that even make sense? Like, you can live vicariously through someone else, right? I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can you rage vicariously? Blindor is like my proxy rager. Proxy rager. Alright. Anyway, we're on Electric Circuit. And that actually lends itself to some potentially interesting things from both players. Use that back mineral only. With the stack temples or power generators that you can break down. I feel like if Crazy-Hydra tries to be greedy and takes that back mineral only with his third hatchery, which normally is not greedy, but when you're playing against Fantasy, somebody who loves them vultures and those sneaky drops and whatnot, I would play like as defensive as possible. Seriously. When you're playing against Fantasy, hide your drones, hide your probes! This is vultures. You're gonna try and rape them, for sure. For sure. Actually, wait, no, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that. Word. Okay, so is it just me, or are there actually only KT fans in the crowd today? Has anybody seen an SKT fan? Do they actually not even exist anymore? Oh man, wouldn't it be hilarious if actually like all SKT fans were just like those fake fans who only like a team because they're good, and now that SKT is like doing horribly, they just like don't have any fans anymore because none of the fans were actually real fans. That would be so funny. I would actually giggle for days on end if that were the case. They only liked them when they were good. Okay, but seriously, I just don't see any in the crowd, so
즉석밥을 받으셨네요.
Anyway, Fantasy has taken his gas, so he's going for something tricksy. His wall in at his between his main and his natural looks bizarre. I thought you could wall that in. Oh no, never mind. Oh, he built his barracks like off place and then he fixed it or something. Okay, never mind. I don't know why he did that.
괜찮아요. 저는 원래 이런 이미지니까요.
네.
I-
올라갔고 그다음에 가스
the-
예, 토크를 좀 빠르게 밟는. 그러니까
Why would you build it off place?
뒷마당을 먹은 상태에서 뭔가
Maybe he
확장적으로
wanted
플레이하는 경우들이 많은데
to
정명훈 선수가
perhaps send out an SCV before the barracks was
빠르게
finished.
토크를 올렸습니다.
So if he was building it as a complete wall, he wouldn't be able to do that or something?
볼 수가 있겠죠. 앞뒷마당 모두 이제 3의 처리 피면서
Or-
조용하게 가려고 하는 임정현 선수의 모습이거든요.
Oh no. Okay. I think I've got a better reason for that. Crazy-Hydra, by the way, mined out the back mineral things there, so Fantasy can't trick a vulture into his base. I think I've actually just realized why he did that. If he saw a 5-pole incoming, if he had walled himself in, Marines would pop out on the outside of his wall, and he would probably be boned.
정말 최고시네요.
So I guess he left a gap there, so like the first Marine could actually come inside the wall, and even though there's a one space gap there, he could just block it with like a bunch of SCVs. So that could possibly be what that was about. I hope that makes sense. I think that makes sense.
예, 그리고 이제 미리 사전에
Yes.
그 국립건물 지역에 있는 미네랄 있잖아요. 그 미네랄 지역을 드론으로
And
푸습니다.
actually, the more I think about that, the smarter it sounds.
벌처를 이제
Damn.
SCV를 통해서
Terran
넘길
players
수가
take
있기
note.
때문에, 그런 점들을 미리 사전에 방지를 해놨고.
Anyway, we are going to see a starport from Fantasy, but also an expansion. So he went like, wait, actually, this is Vulture out yet? I was going to just say he went like one Vulture into expansion, but no, he is actually, oh, he's making a Wraith, and he's getting most likely Spider Mines. Okay, so he's going one Wraith into Vulture drop. Actually, that could be Speed or Mines, actually. But he's getting one Wraith, he's going to go for a Vulture drop, but he's also expanding behind. So he'll probably follow up with Valkyries again, just to defend against Mutas. Now, we do see a Hydra Den from Crazy-Hydra, but that doesn't necessarily mean Lurkers. It could just be like a defensive Hydra Den, because he, just in case like a random Vulture sneaks in or something.
T1 같은 경우는 지금은 정명훈 선수가 완전히 팀을 이끌고 있는 상태이기 때문에 임정현 선수에게
So,
도전은 절대 안 되는 이런 상황이고.
yeah, nothing crazy so far. Interesting that the Wraith did not kill the Overlord that was back in the natural. I think this is actually a good choice. See, a lot of players will just send the Wraith to kill that first Overlord by the natural, but instead, Fantasy is saying, well, I can kill that Overlord at my natural whenever I want, so I'm not going to waste time doing it. I'm instead going to rush straight to his base, kill as many Overlords as I can, and then pull back. And actually, it's not a drop. He's actually getting Cloak on his Wraiths. It's going to be like a 1-port Cloak Wraith that are fairly late here, kind of after an expansion. Not so sure how effective this is going to be, but he's going to at least see relatively late Spire, so he's going to be able to poke around a little bit here. Nice reaction by Crazy-Hydra pulling back that throne, and he has taken the mineral only with his third hatchery, which I believe is fairly normal on this map since it is a protected back expansion. You don't want to see the engineering bait going up for Fantasy. He does want to get some turrets up because it is very likely that Crazy-Hydra will actually switch into Mutalisks after this to punish the Wraithing player. Mutas plus some Scourge are generally pretty good against Wraiths. The Wraiths are just a little bit flimsy, and also their damage type I believe is explosive, so they don't actually do full damage to the Mutas. But obviously you can, like, if they have Cloak, you can like snipe the Overlords and stuff and still do some fancy micro, so it's not quite so clear cut. This is a very interesting spell. I guess Fantasy really wants to go Valkyries, but he's like, ah, friggin' Sock did it first, so now I have to do something else.
한 3개에서 2개만 찍고 바로 세트로 넘어가는 뭔가 전략적인 그런 체계적인 플레이를 준비를 해왔습니다.
네. 자, 곳곳에 마인까지 다 추가 확장 기지 심어 놓으면서 정명훈 선수 지금 탄탄히 플레이하고 있거든요. 자, 추가
we do see a science facility. Okay, so he's actually
좀
switching now to standard bio.
수밖에 없는 상황.
I wonder how many Wraiths he made, because he did get Cloak, right? And Cloak is pretty expensive. I think it's 150, 150 or something like that. So if he's only made a handful of Wraiths, I don't really see the point of getting Cloak. I mean, I guess we'll see. He could have just cancelled Cloak as well. Perhaps seeing all these Hydras, seeing the Overlord speed, he's just like, well, maybe my Cloak Wraiths won't actually do anything and cancel it. So he does have 3 Wraiths here. I definitely don't think Cloak is worth it for just 3 Wraiths. Because then it's what, 50-50 cost for a Cloak on each of them? Not very efficient. IMO. And Speed Overlord actually runs in here and sees the transition, so I believe he got close enough to see the science facility and probably see the engineering bay blinking, which means obviously infantry upgrades. I don't think he actually even needs to see the barracks to know that it is a bio switch, but look at this, trying to break the front with Hydralisks, and actually it looks like it's going to be really effective here. Wow, Crazy-Hydra making use of the Hydra. And oh, it looks like Cloak was actually not cancelled, he did get it, but as I said, not really going to be able to make too much use of it with only 3 raids. And that was a very nice move there by Crazy-Hydra. Hydralisks are generally not that effective against Bio in like the mid game, because once they get like Stim and medic support, but it didn't look like those Marines had Stim, and they also had no medics. So against completely unupgraded Marines, Hydralisks are actually not that bad. They're actually pretty good. And obviously, as you saw, they take down bunkers very, very quickly. So that was a cool little timing there for Crazy-Hydra. I mean, it's just like he got the Hydralisk upgrades anyway, just to help defend against the wraiths, and because he wasn't sure if Fantasy was meching. So he's like, well, you know, I might as well actually make use of these. Nice little Spider-Man blocks there on the expansions by Fantasy. Gonna deny that 4th base of Crazy-Hydra just for a little bit here. And notice that Crazy-Hydra is taking the close 4th rather than the far away 4th. That is slightly curious to me. Oh shit. Alright. Normally, like, okay, so normally when you're playing, you know, standard, you know, 3-edge Muta against 1-Rex, FEing player or whatever, is that a drop? Oh, it's a fake drop. Look at that. I'm pretty sure they're all empty there. He just like sent them to the main and shift click them back to his main. He's trying to make Fantasy super scared here. Look at this, Fantasy just like what? But yeah, so normally you take a far away base as your 3rd just because it's harder for the turn to push it. But there's a couple of reasons why you wouldn't do that in this case. First of all, on this map it's not as good because you can't just like leave 2 lurkers at the top of the ramp to defend another main. So it's not like another main is actually more easily defendable anyway. And with all these wraiths flying around, and you know, Fantasy being a very harassy player, I think it's taking closer base is nice because then he can like at least use his Speed Hydras to run over there pretty quickly and help defend stuff. So yeah, I guess that's his reasoning behind this. When you're playing against a mech player, also you kind of just take all expansions wherever they are, but this, I mean, I'm pretty sure he knows that this is a standard, you know, Marine medic tank science vessel. You know, getting his 3rd gas ASAP. Look at that timing, nicely timed. And Hydraling Lurker is actually a very strong mid-game Zerg composition. As you can see, he's actually pretty close in supply to Fantasy relatively. It was at 83 to 98 just now, whereas usually turns a little bit more ahead in supply, I believe. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, Hydra Lurker is actually a really, really strong composition. It used to be fairly popular. The reason it's not so popular nowadays is just because you know, if you just add enough siege tanks, it's actually not that good. And Zerg players are generally favoring that faster hive, getting the faster defilers. Just give you a bit more flexibility, and I guess rewards the stronger players a bit more. And with those 5 siege tanks there, it's like, ooh man, that's a pretty strong Terran army. And look at this, he's killing a lot of overlords as well. That's gonna be annoying. But here we go, he's moving in. The Scourge are going in as well. Gonna get 2 of the science vessels straight away, and actually just immediately pull back here. Or wait, is he gonna go in? No, he's gonna chill. He did lose all of his Zerglings there, so he needs to wait for another round of Lings to help support this. But Fantasy's army is not actually looking particularly big here. If Crazy-Hydra can get a good surround, that could be bad news for Fantasy, even though he does have 5 siege tanks. There are enough Zerg, and look at that, so many lurkers from Crazy-Hydra. Oh my goodness. That is many lurker. So plus 1 attack is done on the Marines though. Fantasy has expanded to his mineral only behind this, so he's getting a good income. Continuing to irradiate random lurkers. And we actually have some overlords moving down here. Did he actually get dropped this time? I'm not even sure, but hold that thought. He's going in with the lurkers. The lurkers are a little bit far back. He needs to unburrow them and move them in closer. Nice defense matrix on the leading siege tank, starting to leapfrog these lurkers, but actually not enough supporting units. It's gonna be close, but it's gonna be in Fantasy's favor. 4 lurkers remain for Crazy-Hydra. Man, that looks like a decent position for him, but for some reason he didn't swing any units around the bottom side to flank it, so just kind of ran headlong into the Terran wall of units. And looks like though Fantasy did not have enough units to hold that position. He starts to pull back, and Crazy-Hydra is going to pursue. A few vultures coming in here to help support, laying some spider mines. There is the Defiler out though. That Defiler, oh, I thought it was going to run into the spider mine. Either way, Fantasy's army is now kind of in a random position here. Looks like he's starting to move towards that 9 o'clock base, and Crazy-Hydra's army is not quite in position. But the thing is, now that Fantasy's moving all the way across the map to the 9 o'clock, he's not going to be able to send reinforcements over that easily. Like Crazy-Hydra's army is like going to be cutting off any reinforcements, but he might snipe his hatchery in the meantime. The spider mine's doing a good job blocking things, although wow, lucky that those lurkers didn't get hit there. But this hatchery is going to go down, so even if Fantasy loses these forces, at least he has managed to kill that expansion, killed a number of drones as well, and is going to be able to still micro these marines to be quite annoying against Crazy-Hydra. Although it looks like he's going to abandon them now. Abandon. Why the hell is that word so difficult to pronounce? But the thing is, Crazy-Hydra did double expand earlier, so he does have the bottom left natural as well. So he's still on 4 base against the Terran 3 base. So he's not economically, he's not in the worst position in the world. Fantasy is going to see this location, but it is defended by a couple of lurkers. There's a Nidus Canal there, presumably connecting it to the Zerg's natural, and some more units going to come in and clean up the rest of the forces here. Fantasy though has started to pull ahead in the supply, 124 supply to 81. Definitely still playable for Crazy-Hydra, but Fantasy is really starting to mix in a lot of vultures now, kind of his signature unit. I'm sure any brutal player is afraid when Fantasy makes vultures. Interestingly, doesn't have any upgrades just yet. Presumably he's getting them, but oh, nice little surround there with the Zerglings under the Dark Swarm. Gonna take down those vultures, because Fantasy wasn't quite paying attention there. Instead, he was paying attention to his attack that's going down here to the south side. Whoa! Man, could have got both of those vessels, but nice reaction time from Fantasy pulling them back, and of course Scourge are not exactly the smartest units in the game. Unfortunately for Crazy-Hydra, getting a few units stuck back there. Basically, he's got a bad rally point on his mineral-only hatchery, and the pathing is trying to send those units through the neutral buildings, because for some reason neutral buildings are not considered in Brutal or AI pathing. Anyway, Fantasy has gone for the full mech switch here, adding on a ton of factories, as well as getting those mech upgrades. He's going into like pure Vulture siege tank. I wonder if does Crazy-Hydra? No, Crazy-Hydra. He obviously has a Spire. He's made some Scourge, so I wonder if he can just like make a handful of Muta and start picking off tanks and stuff. But the issue is there's still a few Marines running around the map, but right now it's primarily Vulture tanks. So if Crazy-Hydra does a nicely timed Muta switch after killing off a number of these remaining Marines, perhaps he can just get a lot of free siege tanks. And look at this Fantasy not paying attention at all, losing a good number of those Marines. And right now, I feel like he probably just doesn't have many Marines on the map at all. He's got like 3 Marines maybe. I don't think yet. I think those are like the last of his Marines. So Crazy-Hydra can just make a control group of Muta now and go kill all the siege tanks, which would be really, really nice. There's the mass barracks float from Fantasy. Notice he only made 4 barracks in total this game, before going completely into mech. And the question is Crazy-Hydra gonna... Well, I mean, he must know that this is a full mech switch now, so he's gotta change his army composition to suit it. Obviously, the way you play against mech is very different from the way you play against bio. Playing against mech, you rely a lot more on Hydras and Mutas, generally. Whereas against bio, you have Lurker and Defiler as your primary composition. And whoa! Were these for drops, or were they just random overlords here? I assume they're just random overlords. They could be for drops. If they were drops and there were units in there, that would be quite a nice for Fantasy. But for some reason, Fantasy is just continually pulling ahead in the supply right now. He's up to 160 supply against the 85 supply of Crazy-Hydra. Fantasy also looks like taking the 9 o'clock and the bottom right main base there. So I'm not really sure how this is happening. I mean, Fantasy is keeping the pressure on the Zerg. If you just look at the mini-map, Fantasy has complete map control. He's pressuring on all sides. He's kind of like taking a big scoop out of the middle of the mini-map there. which is quite funny. But you know, that is fairly common in ZVT though. Terran often, well, they kind of need to take map control because those Dark Swarms, like if you get pushed back too far as a Terran and you get like Dark Swarms running up to your natural, then you're kind of screwed. So you need to have a lot of space to be able to maneuver around Dark Swarms and kind of keep the Zerg on the back foot. Otherwise it's extremely difficult to play, and he should not run those overlords too far ahead. I'm very nervous about this. I think it's okay. Anyway, Crazy-Hydra just broken 100 supply against the 167 supply of Fantasy. Fantasy continuing to lay mines all over the place. Be super annoying. It looks like a few Goliaths have been added. Fantasy realizes the vulnerability there that he had against Mutalisk, so now adding all the Goliaths. Of course, the Goliaths themselves are just great units anyway, even against ground. They have a really nice range. They have a lot of HP. So yeah, going for the mass Goliath tank with some vultures sprinkled in is generally what you do as a Terran going mech against a Zerg. It's a little bit different from the composition against Protoss. It's actually quite interesting to see. Like, you know, Terran in TVT and TVZ you go Goliath tank, whereas in TVP you add on a lot more vultures just to help deal with like the mass zealots and stuff. And because mines are so good. Anyway, Fantasy has actually broken down that back power generator thing. I actually don't know if the Zerg broke it down, or no, I assume Fantasy was the one that broke it down, so he has access now to that back mineral only. But there are some units to defend that. So Crazy-Hydra is essentially on 6 bases here, although 2 of those are mineral onlys. And Fantasy's on his 5, one of which is mineral only, so I mean it's still definitely playable for Crazy-Hydra, even though I'd say he's pretty far behind at this point. Fantasy's basically maxed. He's starting to bank a lot of money. He can start expanding more, adding on more factories. Whereas Crazy-Hydra's been unable to attack this entire game. He's down at 120 supply right now. He's also banking a little bit of money, which concerns me. Considering he's not actually maxed, so he should not really be having that much money, that much unspent money. Meanwhile, the cute little drop here though at the bottom right, and actually, now that I look at this, it doesn't seem like there were that many SCVs there to start with. I'm not sure why, and now a lurker drop at the 3 o'clock base as well. I actually don't know if that was a drop or he just like ran them in there somehow, but gonna deny some mining there, so doing some good harassment. But Fantasy doesn't really care about this because he is basically maxed. He's still basically maxed. He has so much money in the bank that even if he loses, you know, a couple of minutes of mining time, it's actually not really gonna hurt him too much in the long run. And oh, huge plague on the mech though! Wow, getting 4 of those siege tanks. Those crucial siege tanks, and here come the Mutalisks. This is what I was talking about, the Muta switch going after those Goliaths. The problem is though that he has not been upgrading his air, so he's got unupgraded Mutas against 2-1 Goliaths, and he's not splitting out the irradiated Muta. That's actually horrible for him. Oh my god, why is he not splitting out the irradiated Muta? Absolutely be doing that. He would have at least a couple more Mutas remaining, but now Fantasy's mech army is without anti-air. The tanks are just taking free damage right here. The Muta's going to try and pick off as much as they can before the tanks can go back to the safety of whatever anti-air there is on the map. How many is he going to get? That is the question here, and it looks like a couple Mutas also at the bottom left going to clean up the tanks over there. Crazy-Hydra with a very well-timed switch here has now taken Fantasy down to like 160 supply, and he's at almost 130 right now, so narrowing the supply gap greatly there. I think that was partly a mistake from Fantasy rather, to just not be making enough Goliath there, just purely relying on the mass tank and vulture. So well done by Crazy-Hydra, but the question is it enough? Is it too little too late? Fantasy still has his half of the map. You do not want to be playing a split map game against like a huge meching Terran army. But look at this, the Muta's actually, now that the tanks have rejoined Goliath, the Muta's just going to go harass the bottom right base. Man, this is so cute. This is really nice. Unfortunately for him though, there's a lot of tanks going in here. Ooh, nice little splash there from the Zerglings. And there's actually still not that many Goliaths in this composition. Like if Crazy-Hydra actually had Muta upgrades and just made like, you know, 20 Mutas right now, he could kill that force easily. Even with some irradiates from the science vessels, I'm pretty sure he could just kill that. And it looks like, is that going to be drops? Okay, I don't know what that was. Oh no, he is doing like random Hydra drops on the tanks, but it does look like he's going to lose his base, but no, he's going to get some lurkers under swarm, and that might barely save him. Even the splash damage from the tanks will not hit those lurkers while they are burrowed under swarm, and Fantasy is going to get pushed back here by the Dark Swarms. Very, very nice by Crazy-Hydra. He somehow manages to hold onto this base just barely, and he's denied mining at the bottom right base of Fantasy. I can't believe this. Is Crazy-Hydra actually going to win this game? Oh my goodness. Fantasy's position is looking more and more precarious. He's only got the 3 o'clock base mining right now, and I think his mineral only in his main base might be mining a little bit, but it's probably getting quite dry. Whereas Crazy-Hydra still got his bottom 3 bases, and obviously had much lower saturation anyway, so his natural and stuff is still mining. And look at this, he's crushing through the tank core here of Fantasy. Fantasy definitely looking flustered, a nice defense matrix there. The thing is, this core of Siege Tanks is so expensive, you cannot afford to lose it. You need to keep this core of Siege Tanks alive. It looks like some Hydras and Lurkers even came down here to this bottom right base. He might even get the command center. The 3 o'clock base is going to be the only thing that's left for Fantasy right now, keeping him in the game. He's continuing to push down here though. The Dark Storms have run out. Looks like there's not any Lurkers left, and Goliaths actually are going to manage to save this expansion. That command center is burning though. He needs an SCV there to save it. He needs an SCV. It's at 140 health. I think he'll have enough time to send an SCV down there. But oh man, another huge plague went off, hitting a bunch of Goliaths and a couple of science vessels. Looks like 9 o'clock base was taken by Crazy-Hydra, but that's going to get taken down by Vultures in fact. But I think Crazy-Hydra is also expanding to the 12 o'clock right now. So just replacing the bases as fast as Fantasy can kill them. And ooh, some Lings coming in the back, trying to bomb these units, trying to bomb these plague units. And look at that, morphing into a Lurker under the swarm next to the plague tank. So the tanks actually splash each other. Wow! Pimpest play right there. Did you guys see that? He wanted to get as much splashdown as possible, so he just like morphed it into a Lurker. That is pretty cool. Man, that's like almost on the level of Action's Burrowed Ling the other day. Super, super sick move. And Fantasy is getting pushed back, and Fantasy's down to 143 supply. Looks like he did save that command center there from burning. Has now just taken the natural there instead of the main. But here's the thing, like the mech army, you know, it gets much more efficient the larger the army is. So like a max Terran mech army is way, way, way more efficient than, you know, like a 140 supply mech army. And so, you know, now that Crazy-Hydra has managed to break that core of Siege Tanks, he can actually start doing cool moves like this, like counterattacking with Lings, and actually being a lot more effective when he actually tries to engage the army head on. But it looks like some Vultures of Fantasy moving in here. Fantasy's trademark Vulture Harass that has won him many games where he was behind. And it looks like there's actually no defense for these drones. A nice plague on those 3 science vessels. I feel like Crazy-Hydra really should be making at least one sucking in all his mineral lines, but oh my god, this Lurker drop could be huge! Fantasy's not paying attention, he's gonna lose a lot of these SCVs, oh my god! Fantasy's just not watching at all. Looks like 8 kills on that Lurker. Fantasy busy attacking with his own army here. Oh man, these players doing a pretty darn good ZVT here, trading blow for blow, but Fantasy once again not paying attention. But the tanks looks like they might be enough. He needs to shoot the SCVs. Don't shoot the SCVs. Oh, he could have shot the SCVs. And now the mech army is rolling down once again. Some more Vultures gonna harass these drones at the bottom left. But it looks like he's not targeting down the drones. He's gonna attack some Zerglings. That's kind of useless. And that is still a pretty scary mech force moving across. Not as scary as before. I like those 2 Marines at the 6 o'clock, by the way. Not only checking that expansion, but also blocking any drops that go across the south side to hit his own expansion at the bottom right. Meanwhile, oh man, we need some Lurkers, we need some swarms. Where are the swarms? Where are the plagues? And here we go, there's the swarm. The units are flooding in here. The tanks are mostly on siege and the mines are in bad positions. Oh my god, Fantasy laying the worst possible siege mines. Spider mines there underneath his siege tanks, losing a bunch of siege tanks there to his own mine splash. And Crazy-Hydra just holding on like a champion here, holding on like a boss, but he's running very low on units here, just flooding out Zerglings, but Zerglings are really not going to do that much against the mech army, but he's coming in from the backside as well if he can get a good flank off, and actually the Zerglings managed to close with the siege tanks. Oh my goodness, Fantasy's army is getting crushed in the middle of the map. Fantasy is going to lose the last of his tanks, and 1 tank only remains, sending in some reinforcements, but there is no way that this force can hold anymore. He's going to defense matrix his last siege tank. The Crazy-Hydra has held. This is like the story of this game. That engagement represents this entire game, just looking like it's a very dire situation, and yet Crazy-Hydra managing to hold at the last second, continuing to do these fancy Lurker egg morph tricks, to like tank shots from siege tanks and spider mines and whatnot. But at this point, he should just be flooding units, which is exactly what he is doing here. And Fantasy is in full retreat with his mech army, going to lose even more of these expensive siege tanks. There is no way he can afford to replenish that expensive mech army. He is down to 110 supply to a 90-something supply Zerg, with 3-2 crackings running all over the place, killing everything. Crazy-Hydra, I can't believe this. Crazy-Hydra is pretty damn good at this game. And this just makes me wonder because, like, okay, yesterday I already talked about it with Flash, or not yesterday, but I guess 2 days ago? Anyway, recently we saw Flash versus Bogus, where, spoiler alert, Bogus actually beat Flash. And now Fantasy looks like he might lose to Crazy-Hydra, and the thing is, these two guys, they're going to be playing an OSL semi-final in like a week and a half. Not even a week and a half, it's going to be like in 8 days, they're going to be playing an OSL semi-final. So they should be practicing Brutal like non-stop. And yet, you know, alright, I guess in Flash's case it was a little bit worse to lose to Bogus in a TVT. Crazy-Hydra is definitely a strong player, but still, Fantasy TVZ is pretty amazing, so for this to be happening is quite crazy. It looks like nice harassment on the 3 o'clock base as well. Fantasy going to clean this up with some tanks. He's still holding on barely to like a 20 supply lead. But this is just looking really, really bad for him at this point. Basically, given his earlier position there, I mean, he had a huge advantage. At one point in this game, Fantasy was maxed 200 of 200 against 120 supplies there. He had an 80 supply lead, and yet it is now down to like a 30-something supply lead. So, oh, it looks like some nice defiler times here by those vultures. Fantasy, I mean, you know, however this game may be going, he's doing a good job with the vultures, but now the bottom right bases are under attack. Oh my goodness, he needs to kill those last siege tanks, and it looks like the last tanks will go down here. Great move by Crazy-Hydra, and Plague on the siege tanks. A few Goliaths are still there. They're going to help keep those SCVs alive. So it looks like this attack will get shut down, and at least Fantasy is going to hold on to that bottom right main expansion. But Crazy-Hydra doing a great job, like attacking the 9 o'clock, attacking the natural, attacking all over the place, stretching Fantasy's forces thin. Because another thing about the mech ball is, well, it needs to be a ball. It needs to be like, you know, a giant mech ball of death rolling across the map, just, you know, taking out whatever Zerg tries to throw at it. But if you just, you know, do small attacks all over the place with very cheap units, the Hydras and Lings, the mech army has a much more difficult time dealing with it. You know, it's very difficult to know exactly how much of the army you can split off safely. Because as I said, you know, if the mech army is not, if you don't have that big solid core siege tanks, like if you only have a couple of tanks, it's actually not very efficient at all in a fight. Like siege tanks are good, but if you only have 1 or 2 of them, they're actually not a huge deal. And looks like continuing to run around here. Those spider mines, I think, are really saving Fantasy right now. Just that solid vulture play, harassing with the vultures, killing drones, laying mines that, you know, randomly kill units, and just force Crazy-Hydra to be a little bit more careful where he walks. More unit harass at this expansion. I mean, this game is just ridiculous at this point. Funnily enough, Fantasy's not even maxed on his upgrades. He's at 3-2 right now. Should be 3-3 really. Although there's actually no 3 carapace for the Zerg either, so I guess not. And looks like some vultures. Gonna take on Hydras in the middle of the map. Probably won't go for them, especially not with the lurkers there. Actually, they do manage to kill most of the Hydras. Vulture's OP, man. Vulture's OP. And the thing is, we're still in kind of a split map situation. So if this game does go on for too long, wait, whoa, what's going on there? Crazy-Hydra trying to pull a Jade on here. I don't even know how that happened. Maybe like some vultures ran into the main or something, so he just killed it with a drone and forgot to move them. Oh, silly Crazy-Hydra. I think at this point he should actually break down those back power generators himself, because it doesn't really matter if that's open anymore. He doesn't even have any mining in his main, so he just break that down so that he doesn't get units stuck like that. And oh no, free drones! Drone massacre! Nice little drone block there. Loses a bunch of them, but kills all but 1 of the vultures. Now the Hydras can come back and take it down. Crazy-Hydra's economy is actually looking quite strong. And somehow there's like 1 medic stuck behind that mineral line. I don't know what's going on there. You guys see that? That 1 medic that's freaking out behind the minerals. Like, I assume she can walk out of there. I don't know why she's freaking out. And this is
싸우고 있는데
this is not ideal. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to make a huge difference. I mean, 5 drones would be useful to have and a few Hydras as well, but ooh, wow, look at that.
예.
Blasting down those plague vultures.
순식간에
Good stuff, good stuff.
시작해버렸죠, 진짜.
예.
테란 힘이 또 커지기 시작했습니다. 결국
Meanwhile, looks like Fantasy actually hasn't even been able to add that much infrastructure yet. Normally by this point, like, you would see the Terran also adding on a bunch of factories at the bottom right main. So basically, it's like factories at both mains, and then he just can mass pump siege tanks in the bottom right and keep that defend and stuff. But Crazy-Hydra's been so aggressive, in this late game that he really hasn't had the opportunity to do so. Meanwhile, looks like an attack, small attack coming in here, but realizes that actually the entire mech army is here, so not really going to engage. And oh man, that is a lot of siege tanks. That is many tanks, yes?
예, 병력 규모 보십시오. 이게
Wow.
어마어마하게 커졌죠. 아까처럼 진짜 한준 병력으로
He's not even max, he's at like 150 supply, and that's already a scary number of siege tanks. Imagine another 50 supply of siege tanks. Oh man, I'd be shitting myself, and I'm not even in the game. I'm like commentating the game, and I'm like looking over my shoulder, scared that like a tank is sieging behind my chair. And nice spider mine there. Killing 3 Hydras, not the biggest deal in the world, but the Korean commentators seem to enjoy it. Or I guess he got 4 Hydras and the defiler, so it was a pretty sweet mine. And actually, this 9 o'clock base is looking quite vulnerable now for Crazy-Hydra. He doesn't have enough stuff here to help defend it. Oh man, Fantasy just kind of walked across the map with his army. I don't know where all of Crazy-Hydra's forces are right now. It looks like Crazy-Hydra might have been overly aggressive here and just thrown away too many units with harassment. Of course, he did also lose a lot of units to those well-placed spider mines, but actually Crazy-Hydra looks like he might now be in a little bit of trouble. Can he hold on to this bottom left base once again? Crazy-Hydra, will he hold? He does have a Dark Swarm now, he does have some lurkers down, and those are going to kill a lot of these siege tanks. Fantasy trying to unsiege, trying to get them out of harm's way. And it looks like Crazy-Hydra with a Dark Swarm will stay alive here. Whoa. Nope, no mind drag.
지쳐서 경기를 포기할 것 같아요. 전쟁에 몇 번을 지금 막아내는 겁니다.
Fantasy's just like, well, if you have Dark Swarms and Lurkers at the front, I guess I'll just walk in the back. But look at this, a Lurker drop at the bottom right, and this is fantastic play from Crazy-Hydra. This is exactly the kind of thing you want to do. If a Terran's attacking you and you feel like you're feeling the pressure, you never want to be only defending. You always want to at least be doing some kind of counterattack, some kind of counter harassment. Because if you're only just defending, if you're letting your opponent just get his economy up, take bases without bothering to try and defend them, then that is, you're just not going to win. Even if you defend for now, he's just going to kind of outproduce you later on. So these kinds of like small counter drops, I mean, basically he just used 1 lurker there and managed to kill a couple of SCVs into not mining for a little while there, and also not more importantly, but also kind of tax Fantasy's multitasking, like force him to spend his APM defending that base rather than microing his push or doing something else like, I don't know, macroing, whatever. But unfortunately for Crazy-Hydra, he's finally going to lose his base after a long and arduous game. Fantasy has finally managed to break down the bottom left exo. Fantasy looking confident now. Oh man, Crazy-Hydra, it was looking so good for him after he broke that Terran army, but now he is down to 75 supply against the 150 supply Fantasy. He's losing his remaining mining expansions. After those bottom left bases go down, Crazy-Hydra will have no more income. He will have no expansions left. He's got no money in the bank. Fantasy at 160 supply or 150 supply, got plenty of money banked. Gonna crush this expo, and I think that's probably gonna be it. GG from Crazy-Hydra. Fantasy takes game number 2, an epic TVZ there. Crazy-Hydra, he played so well. He's a little bit disappointed. I do feel quite bad for him. I thought he was going to take it after those beautiful holds and crushing that Terran army, but just unfortunately unable to overcome the imbalance of the spider mine. And Fantasy will take the game. SKT takes the Brood War best of 3 2-0. And we will go on to StarCraft 2 matches right after this.
한 선수는 밀려고 하고 한 선수는 버티려고 하는 이런 줄다리기 싸움이